You're about to witness something no one else has dared to see, something they locked away, deep beneath layers of denial, buried inside files marked confidential and do not open. But here you are, alone with this secret now, and it's staring back at you like a dark pulse beneath the stars. I don't know who else to tell, because what I'm about to share isn't just a story. It's a shattering truth so fragile and disturbing that most would choose to forget it immediately, if they even survive the realization. Have you ever looked up at the cold blackness beyond our world and felt an unexplainable chill, a whisper in the silence that says, "Don't"? They tell you Pluto is just a frozen rock, a distant, lonely dwarf planet spinning quietly at the edge of our solar system. But what if I told you it's not just a rock? What if Pluto is more than we ever imagined? More than a cold corpse of ice and shadow. More like a sentinel of silence, a cosmic predator disguised in stillness, one that doesn't just freeze temperatures but annihilates existence itself in the blink of an eye. And the terrifying part? This secret has been hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone, maybe you, to find it. The story begins the night he vanished. There was nothing unusual about the evening. The sky was clear, dotted with the faintest glimmers of distant galaxies, and planets, so distant, so unreachable that they felt almost unreal. But as you looked closer, you might have noticed something else, something wrong. Not with the sky, but with the man who stood outside his front door whispering into the void. You probably never heard what he said. No one did. Except for the baby in the house next door. That baby, just a few months old, barely understanding language, suddenly stopped crying. Then, as if compelled by some invisible force, the infant spoke a name, so quiet and fragile it barely broke the stillness. Pluto. And then the man was gone. Gone like he was erased, not just from sight but from existence itself. The air where he'd stood was colder, thicker, almost viscous, as if the universe itself had folded over him. No trace, no explanation. Just silence, as if he'd been reduced to frozen dust before anyone could blink. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know, because you're the only one who's paying attention. Everyone else, they've already looked away, blinded by the familiar lies they tell themselves about space, about safety, about the limits of human understanding. But you are here, holding this secret. And it's heavy. The strange thing is, the clues have been scattered all over history, little things we always dismissed. Strange accounts of people disappearing in the cold, voices from the past echoing through today's technology, whispers of cosmic horrors never quite understood. The archives hold evidence you're never meant to see: encrypted signals, forbidden broadcasts, files that vanish when you try to copy them. One of those files, a single recording, survives. It's a voice from a long-dead relative speaking through a smartphone, a voice so clear and desperate that it makes your skin crawl. Pluto is not what you think, the voice warns. It waits, it watches, and it kills with silence. You can try to dismiss it all as paranoia or coincidence. But then why did the surveillance footage of the man's disappearance show nothing but a sudden distortion? A ripple in reality, like a shadow peeling away from the world. Why did every electronic device in the vicinity crash simultaneously, leaving no record? Why did the baby say Pluto? Why did a cold, unexplainable dread settle over that neighborhood afterward? Because what's hidden in that frozen rock is alive in its own way, an ancient force beyond human comprehension. And it's hungry. You're probably asking yourself how this can be true. How can something so distant, so frozen, be capable of such instantaneous destruction? How can silence turn flesh to dust? The answer is terrifyingly simple. We don't know. Science calls it extreme cryovolcanism, a mysterious phenomenon on Pluto's surface. But the truth, the real truth, is written in whispers and shadows, in disappearances and dreams that don't belong to you. It's encoded in the very ice that cloaks Pluto's heart. A heartbeat that beats not with life, but with annihilation. They say the planet's thin atmosphere can barely hold heat, that its surface is colder than any place in the solar system. But there's a darkness beneath that ice that freezes more than temperature. It freezes time and memory and life itself, leaving nothing but dust and silence behind. And now that darkness is coming closer, not in a blaze of light or a roar, but in quiet, invisible waves that slip through the fabric of reality. You've seen the signs, the strange flickers on your devices, the voices caught on recordings that weren't there a moment before, the shadows moving just beyond your peripheral vision. It's as if Pluto's cold hand has reached across the void and brushed your world, warning you that you are next. Before this message disappears like everything else, there's one last thing you need to understand. This is no ordinary cosmic threat. It's a psychological trap, a terror that creeps inside your mind and fractures everything you thought was real. It asks the question no one has dared to ask. What if the coldest place in our solar system isn't just a planet, but the universe's most perfect executioner? And what if the moment you look away, you are already dust? The screen flickers, the room temperature drops a fraction, and the whisper you never heard becomes a scream in the silence. You're not alone. And Pluto looks peaceful, but it's waiting to turn you into frozen dust. The files are closing now, but there's one last detail hidden deep inside the corrupted footage you're watching. A shadow, almost human, standing just beyond the edge of the frame, watching you, and it's smiling. The screen flickers again, but this time it's different. Slower, like a heartbeat stuttering in a dying chest. The shadow you saw, the one standing just beyond the frame, isn't smiling anymore. Or maybe it never was. Maybe it was something else entirely. A trick of the light, your mind reaching for patterns where none exist. You sit there, frozen, the faint chill settling over your skin, and you begin to wonder, was any of it real? Or is it something deeper, something unraveling inside you? Because the truth about Pluto, what no one tells you, is that sometimes the scariest mysteries aren't in the stars but inside the cracks of your own mind. The footage you just watched, the sudden vanishings, the whispers, the baby's voice repeating that name like a prayer or a curse. What if those aren't clues to some cosmic horror lurking at the edge of the solar system? What if they're symptoms of a different kind of darkness, one that blurs the edges of memory and sanity, and leaves you grasping at shadows that might not even exist? You try to replay the video, but something is wrong. The file glitches again and again, like it's fighting you, hiding parts it doesn't want you to see. Audio cuts in and out, voices overlapping, sentences breaking in the middle. You catch a fragment, a whisper barely audible beneath the static. They never wanted you to remember. But you're not sure if that's real or just your brain filling the void with what it wants to hear. And then your phone buzzes. A message from an unknown number. The text is simple, almost banal. Did you see what happened? Or did it happen to you? No signature, no reply when you try to respond. Your head aches. You blink, and suddenly the room feels smaller, tighter. There's something wrong with your memory. You can't quite place when the man disappeared. Was it last night? The night before? You struggle to recall what you were doing, where you were standing. There's a gap, a missing moment swallowed whole by the silence. This is the moment when reality fractures. You aren't sure if you're losing your mind, or if the world itself is folding into something you can't explain. Your breath comes in shallow, uneven gasps. The shadows at the edges of the room seem to flicker and twitch as if alive, watching, waiting for you to break. That's when she arrives. Her name is Claire, or at least that's what she says. She appears suddenly in your doorway, a stranger who claims to know everything, the real truth behind what no one tells you. Her eyes are too sharp, too knowing, but there's a fragility beneath the surface, like she's clutching her own secrets close to the bone. You shouldn't be looking at that, she says quietly, voice like a low wind rustling dead leaves. They don't want you to remember. They never wanted anyone to see it. You want to ask who they are, but something in her face stops you. There's fear there, but also something darker. Desperation, maybe guilt. Or maybe she's just as lost as you are. She pulls you away from the screen, away from the flickering shadow. There's more than what you saw, she insists. Things hidden beneath the lies, buried in the things you can't remember. You're not crazy, or maybe you are. But either way, you're part of this now. You want to believe her, but every word she says only feeds the knot tightening in your chest. Can she be trusted? Or is she part of the mystery, a piece of the puzzle that's been lying to you all along? Your phone buzzes again, another message. This time it's a recording. You press play. A voice you don't recognize speaks, but the words don't match the lips moving on the screen. It says, "Forget what you think you know. Pluto isn't the end, it's only the beginning." The recording glitches, warps, then cuts out entirely. You look at Claire. She watches you with an intensity that's almost too much. "This is no ordinary story," she says. "It's a real unsolved mystery. The kind they bury under layers of silence. The kind that changes everything if you let it." Your heart races. You want to ask more, to demand answers, but the questions are choking you. The doubt, the fear, the creeping suspicion that maybe this whole thing isn't about Pluto at all. Maybe it's about the shadows inside your own mind, the memories you're too afraid to face. And the worst part? You don't know if you'll ever be able to tell the difference, because some truths aren't meant to be uncovered. Some mysteries exist to trap you in the space between what you remember and what you've been forced to forget. And you are standing right in the middle of it. What they don't want you to remember is waiting to swallow you whole. The screen flickers one last time, and in the darkness you see it again. That shadow just beyond the frame, watching, but this time it's moving closer. You sit back, the weight of exhaustion pressing on your chest like an anchor dragging you under the waves. But for the first time in days, the gnawing edge of uncertainty dulls just enough to give you a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, you found the answer. The key to unlocking this nightmare that has clawed its way into your waking hours and haunted your restless sleep. The dusty archive you stumbled upon, buried beneath layers of classified files and digital rot, holds a fragment of the hidden truth. Something no one has dared to surface until now. You pore over faded transcripts, fragmented reports, and yellowed photographs that pulse with a strange familiarity, as if they were lifted, straight from your own fogged memories. The story, it seems, is one of a long-forgotten experiment, an attempt to probe the limits of human perception and memory, conducted decades ago by an obscure government agency, whose name has since been erased from every official record. Words jump out at you. Memory glitch, unexplained disappearances, psychological containment breach. It all fits, like a piece of a fractured puzzle clicking into place. There's even a chilling account of a child, a toddler, no older than the baby you saw whisper that name, who vanished in a single cold breath, her last words echoing in the minds of those who dared to listen. The report describes her eyes glazing over, as if she'd seen something beyond the veil of reality, something so terrifying that her tiny body shattered from the inside out. The parallels are undeniable. You feel a tremor in your chest, a flicker of recognition, like you've lived this moment before but were never allowed to understand it until now. You're not crazy. They lied to you, all of it buried beneath layers of silence and deception. This is the mystery uncovered. With trembling hands, you press play on a recovered recording attached to the file, half expecting static and half hoping for clarity. A voice crackles through the speakers, calm, measured, but laced with a hollow dread. It speaks of the Watcher, a presence that observes but never intervenes, lurking in the liminal spaces between consciousness and oblivion, feeding off the fractures in human memory and fear. The voice warns that this Watcher is not an entity to be confronted, but a force to be understood, a psychological virus that infects perception and warps reality from the inside out. Your skin prickles, the hairs at the back of your neck standing on end. It's a warning, a confession, and a plea all wrapped in one. You lean back, breath caught in your throat, and for a moment, the nightmare seems to retreat. The pieces align. The truth feels within reach, and the oppressive weight that has shadowed your every step lightens. You're about to close the files, to step away from this madness and finally breathe again, when your eyes catch it. A single detail, overlooked and insignificant until this moment. A date scrawled faintly in the margin of the oldest document, barely legible beneath the layers of dust and decay. It's the exact date of your own disappearance from memory. The day you first saw the shadow. The day the baby whispered the name no one else knew. The room tilts, the air thickening around you like a suffocating fog. What you thought was a resolution shatters in an instant, and you realize with a sickening clarity that this isn't just a story buried in the past. It's happening again, and worse, it's happening to you. The Watcher has been here all along, lurking in the corners of your fractured recollections, feeding on the cracks in your mind. You're not just a witness to this unfolding horror. You are the target. Suddenly the walls close in. The familiar morphs into the grotesque, and the line between memory and nightmare blurs so completely that you're left questioning everything you thought you knew. The very foundation of your reality trembles beneath the weight of a truth that refuses to be named, a force so intimate, so deeply personal, it feels like a disease eating away at the edges of your sanity. You want to scream, to run, to escape, the gnawing dread curling inside your gut, but you're trapped in this waking nightmare, a spectator to your own unraveling. And then, the final blow. A whisper you hadn't heard before, a phrase so haunting it forces you to rewind every moment of this story, to question every shadow, every flicker of doubt, every unspoken fear. It's not what you saw. It's what you forgot. The screen goes dark. Your heart pounds in the silence, and you know, if you dare to watch again, you will never see the story the same way. You were never alone. That's what they want you to believe. That this descent into memory corruption, hallucinated whispers, and fractured perception was yours alone to bear. That the static in your ears and the face you keep seeing in reflections, slightly wrong, slightly delayed, is just your own unraveling. But now, in the silence that follows the whisper, something shifts. A message appears, not on the screen, but within the screen, burned faintly into the background noise of a frame you rewound 100 times before. It wasn't there yesterday. Not until you heard the whisper. 3 symbols etched into the distortion, layered like fingerprints. Beneath the pixels, an eye, a clock, and a spiral. You feel them more than you see them. And now they're everywhere. You open your phone and find the same sequence embedded in your photos, in the glint of a window pane, the corner of a cloud. It's in your texts too, threaded into the white space between messages like invisible ink revealing itself under emotional pressure. You scroll back through messages you don't remember sending and see fragments of conversations that read like instructions. One repeats, "It's coming back. Don't trust your reflection after 3:33. Your pulse lurches. The timestamp of the baby's whisper? 3:33 a.m. You were right all along. This wasn't a breakdown, this was an upload. Then the dreams start overlapping, not just yours. You wake in a cold sweat with phrases on your tongue, and before you can shake them, a message arrives from a number with no name. Only coordinates and a phrase. "You said this last night in my dream. Who are you?" You stare at the words, your hands trembling, and in that moment something opens, like a door between people who were never meant to connect. Not like this, not outside the boundaries of time. There are others. Dozens, maybe more. People. Across the country, isolated, paranoid, exhausted. All haunted by the same spiral of noise and vision. All of them tracing the same silent watcher. The communication is careful, desperate, and secretive. One woman in Ohio writes that she saw her dead brother's eyes in the mirror after she scratched out a photograph from 1998, the exact year of the earliest found footage clip you uncovered. A man in Arizona claims his newborn repeated, an ancient phrase that unlocked a memory of a desert facility buried beneath decommissioned satellite arrays. They each mention the clock, the eye, the spiral. You thought the glitch was your own, but now it's becoming a symbol, a language used only by those the Watcher has marked. And then you see it again. The footage. The raw, unreleased fragment from 20 years ago. Not the one you found, but one someone else sends to you, marked with the same 3 symbols and a blood-red countdown. The audio is corrupted, yet beneath the layers of distortion is your own voice 20 years younger, calling for help. You don't remember ever being recorded. You don't remember being there, but your face, your inflection, your scream. It's unmistakable. A timeline you never lived is bleeding into the present, and the people watching are starting to realize they've lived false lives built from whatever came after the spiral touched them. And now there's a third voice. Not from the others, not from the watcher. It comes through in static-laced calls late at night. Never a full conversation. Just sentences that feel like riddles and warnings tangled together. They wrote over you. You were someone else before the file. The voice is older, weathered. It doesn't tell you what's happening. It tells you what did. That the program wasn't abandoned, it succeeded. It isolated consciousness. It rerouted identity. It made test subjects forget what they were and replaced them with controlled narratives. It made you forget yourself. And the glitch isn't in your system. The glitch is you, fighting back against the programming. You feel a dread so deep, it becomes physical, curling in your stomach like cold metal. You try to trace the voice. You trace it to a dead man's ID, a name erased from all medical records but mentioned in a surviving memo. One final observer placed in the program to document what happens when memory is fractured too many times. A control node. You find notes attributed to him. Subject 47, now ID, your name, has begun transmitting unintended dreams to other compromised subjects. Contagion spreading through memory tethering. Countdown accelerated. You stop breathing, you're the breach. All of it, the baby, the whisper, the dreams, the symbols, wasn't the beginning. It was the unraveling. You've been carrying inside you since the experiment, since the wipe, since the moment your old life was overwritten with one designed to hide the program's reach. The others aren't just witnesses. They're echoes, alternate versions of you, split and scattered to maintain balance, to keep the entity from collapsing reality completely. And the spiral? It's not just a symbol. It's a map back to the source, and then the final message appears. Not from the others, not from the observer, from the watcher. 3 words blink in fluorescent text across your locked phone screen. We never left. The light flickers overhead. You check your reflection and it blinks back. The countdown was never a warning. It was a mercy. The spiral wasn't a code. It was a mirror. And now, standing at the edge of something that cannot be undone, you begin to understand that the question was never, what did they do to me? It was always, why did I let them? Because it wasn't forced. Not exactly. You said yes to something. Once long ago, before the erasures, before the rewritten memories, before the moment your reflection started blinking half a second too late. A willing signature, a quiet room, a promise of relief, of freedom from grief, from guilt, from a day, life that had already started to rot from the inside. You just wanted to forget, and they gave you that. They made you forget her. That's the piece that never fit. The missing color in your dreams, the voice in the static you couldn't name. She was real, and you chose to erase her, not because she died, but because you couldn't handle remembering how she lived, what she believed, what she sacrificed, what she whispered in your ear before they took her, the last time you held her trembling hands and begged her to stay. That was your first breach. And the program? It didn't erase the pain, it buried it, hid it in symbols, in clocks, in spirals. In the lullaby your daughter used to hum that the baby in the video now sings without ever being taught. You fall to your knees, sobbing for someone whose name has only now returned to you, flooding in with the kind of force that shatters foundations. Lena. They told you the system was to protect humanity, from itself, from truth, from memory. But it was never about truth. It was about control. About erasing the parts of us that make us unpredictable, that make us human. And now, with everything unraveling, you realize the most dangerous thing you could do is remember fully, to reject the lie, even if it means losing yourself. Because memory isn't a wound, it's a thread, and pulling it doesn't break you, it reveals you. And so, the final choice is not about escaping or exposing, it's about accepting. Do you hold on to the synthetic comfort of the story you were given, the version where you are safe, sane, and numb? Or do you reach back into the storm, into pain, truth, Lena, and become whole again? The screen begins to shake, not violently, but like a breath being drawn after years of silence. You're not sure if you're still inside the program or if waking up means stepping into something even more unreal. You don't know if this will kill you, but you whisper her name again, and this time, the spiral stops spinning. The reflection doesn't blink. It smiles. Somewhere off camera, a child laughs. You realize, maybe too late, that this was never a mystery to be solved. It was a soul begging to be remembered. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories you were never meant to hear. Until next time, remember, some truths don't want to be found.